And this is the quote from The Economist. You know, the newspaper, very well-known newspaper. If you read the quote, it is said that the world's most valuable resource nowadays is no longer oil, but data. Okay, this is the trend that I also want you to keep updated, because you are about to graduate very soon, right? You are in almost final year. And when you graduate, you are expected to enter a workforce that must keep updated with the new trend of the industry, right? Even if it's in banking or finance or in other industry, I think data science is a topic that is being considered in many industries. And through the discussion, we also discuss about the quality of the students after graduation. The recruiters would expect what quality from the students. And one of the qualities that the employer mentioned, an employer from banks and corporations mentioned today, is the ability to have analytical skills and to apply the software in order to extract, analyze data by the corporation. In the field of banking and finance research, if you have done any kind of research, you may be very familiar with the software like eViews, SPSS, Stata, right, Stata, or software R. And recently, you may have heard the terminology related to Python. Those are the very popular softwares that are being used for quite a while and for recent period of time, especially Python. Python is actually not a software. It is more like a synthesis of different tools incorporated in Python. You can use Python to design a document, to input text messages, to design a banner, advertisement, or to show different graphs, represent data using different kind of graphs. And you can also use Python by writing codes and trying to represent the data analysis, as well as to run models if you want. And what they mentioned in the conference is that with the digital transformation, as you can see, with a lot of technology interference into businesses, there is a majority of workforce that require to update their knowledge related to technology. Right? For example, NB Bank is one of a very famous commercial banks in Vietnam, and they recruited 200 people just to work in digital transformation, and to design, websites, to design softwares, to design all the digital packages in order to assist customers in online transactions and to improve their own capacity, their own performance. So students, when they graduate nowadays, they are not only required to have knowledgeable skills, knowledgeable knowledge that they gain from university, but also they need to have to develop personal soft skills as usual, together with the soft skills regarding technology, regarding data science, regarding knowledge about machine learning, AI, blockchain, things like that. This is to show you or to remind you that as now you are having time before graduation, you still have time to prepare for graduation. So please if possible, you can register for some courses to try to enhance your knowledge related to software, how to use software in data analysis or in modeling, or how to, get updated regarding to the digital transformation. And this will be very important, very useful for you, so that when you graduate, you will be totally ready for the labor market, and hopefully you will end up with very well paid jobs. As you know, for example, Foreign Trade University, we recently, I think, the Department of Training has already cooperated with the Technology University, and they designed the course related to data science and data software, data analysis software, things like that. And FTU also has the direction to expand the cooperation program together with many university whose major are in technology, in science, like that, in order to develop the program that keep updated with the trend all over the world. Together with that, Faculty of Banking and Finance also are designing a course which is called FinTech, financial technology, just to help the student keep updated with what is going on with the world. So it's very useful. Those corporations who has data, right, who have data in hand, would be a very valuable resource, even more valuable than oil, as you can see. This is the way that they try to magnify the importance of data. But at the same time, if you see those companies who have data in hand, right, and know how to make use of the data to extract information, to analyze and to work out the solution to improve their sales, their activities through data analysis, they will be the winners, right? Yes, so this is what I just want to share to all of you, so that you will make time to improve your self-capacity, and so that you are students of high quality class. So you are supposed to be very outstanding, right? In the labor market, you are supposed to be very outstanding students, and if you aim at ending yourself in a labor market with a very good position, with very good work, start thinking about the qualities that the labor market requires you to have in order to position yourself, obviously. So when you apply for the same position in many corporations, you stand out as the best choice for the corporation, then I think it will assist you very much in the process of developing your personal skills and your personal career. I don't know if you have noticed, but I believe that all of you are using Facebook, right? And many software. Do you have you ever come across a situation in which you speak with your friends or your family members about a thing? Probably just keywords. For example, if you are interested in buying something, right? Or food, right? Then when you speak with your friends or your family members, then you open Facebook and it comes across a lot of advertisement related to the topic that you have already discussed. I don't know if you have the same thing. You have similar situation? If you have come across those situations when you discuss about the keywords, for example, if you are interested in let's say digital transformation or a course of study, or if you are interested in a product, right? Then when you discuss about it, in the era of digital transformation, what the companies are trying to use is to incorporate the artificial intelligence in the software. And actually, when you are using smartphones, they how to say, to some extent, they are collecting information from personal users. By hearing keywords, by collecting your text messages, by collecting your status, your notification, your the topics that you post on your personal page, they are collecting data regarding a specific person, about their interest, their hobby, their concern, their all about their normal daily life activities. Actually, they are collecting data, and they will analyze based on your hobby, for example, your habit of spending money, right? Or your topic of interest, the products that you want to buy, and even your personal financial situation. They all can analyze the data from different channels of information. For banking system, they are developing a credit rating system based on all the social information they collected from the network. So if you have heard information related to, let's say, credit rating by Standard & Poor or Fitch rating, that is the story a little bit out of date. Nowadays, bank will collect information of customers through their social network, and they have the specific software, the artificial intelligence, to be responsible for collecting those data. And it would save time for them to evaluate the credit status of a person and decide, shorten the time of deciding whether or not to lend the money to a person. For example, if Tung Bách, has a lot of social activities on Facebook or on his personal page, then they will, based on the conversation, the normal spending of his, when he tried to deal with the transaction with the seller, or the way that he will pay the bills, whether he has any kind of bad debt, then the bank will decide right away whether or not to lend back a certain amount of money to buy his mobile phone or to buy his personal vehicle, for example. So this is what is going on nowadays. As you can see, if before you have to go to the bank to finish the transactions, right? If you want to open the account, if you want to deal with the bank for any matters, nowadays you can sit at home. You can use internet banking. Even you can open the bank account using eKYC, and with the OCR system, the bank can do not have to use people in inputting the numbers, the information of customers into the system. Nowadays, they can use technology to scan everything and to upload it into the system automatically. And if you have tried the eKYC, right, you can see they capture you, they capture your identity, and they can upload the information automatically. You don't have to input like date of birth or places of birth or etc. Everything is automatic, And this posed the question of, the reduction in simple employees working, being responsible for very simple tasks. Nowadays, you have to upgrade yourself into a level where you are irreplaceable by a machine, right? Even if we are in the era of digital transformation, but as you can see, in many sophisticated work, we still need human to do it. Right? But this is still pose us to the situation in which we will have to upgrade ourselves in order not to be replaced by machines. Right? So try your best as a student that you can develop yourself to the full capacity so that you will be very successful in the future. All right. Time flies. We are actually in the sixth section, which means in the sixth session already. I received a text message from one of your classmates asking about the midterm exam, the midterm test. Normally, if we study offline, then the midterm will take place in the 7th or the 8th session of the course. But since we are doing the course online, so I'm thinking about how to do it. Well, actually, normally when we study offline, then I will give you a midterm test in group. The midterm test will be designed based on the game-based. So basically, you will form a group and then we'll play a game, and your score will be given for the midterm exam. But since we are doing this online, so this is really difficult to carry out the same thing. So I'm thinking of what to give you. What do you want? How many students are there in our class? I haven't looked at the list and I just forget to check attendance from the beginning already. About 66, about 65 students. That's a lot. Probably we will do an online test. And it will be let's say the 8th or the 9th session. What do you think?
我尽力啊。
Yes. Is it all right? Let's see. So this is 6th session. Session 6. So next week we would have 7 and 8. Then we do it in the session 9. What do you think? So it would be, let's see. Oh, next week we would have, are we off for the, I don't know, or probably no, right? Wednesday would be normal. We only off on Thursday, right? I have to check the messages. Okay. Will we be off on do you have any information related to, because we have the holiday next week, right? The 2nd of September, but I'm not sure if we have the day off in the 3rd of on the 3rd of September. Do you have any information related to that? Then we have to structuralize the schedule. Do you have any
This morning, yes, this morning, another instructor told us that next week's Friday will be off. But
next Friday?
we haven't had official information yet, so not sure.
Oh.
But I think we will be off next Friday.
Yeah, because the holidays is on Thursday, so probably on Friday will be off. Okay. Okay, so if we are off on Friday, then do you want the test to be carried out on Wednesday, the week after next? Oh, sorry, the week after next. Which means we would have the exam on the 8th of September. What do you think?
Then what knowledge will it cover?
We would cover the knowledge up to the SWAP, probably the SWAP chapter. Okay.
I think it will be fine.
Yeah. All right. So let's make that plan. So on the 8th of the 8th of September, we will have a midterm test, and it will cover up to the SWAP chapter. Okay. It would not be the group presentation, sorry, Hang, because we are studying online. Then you have the personal test. No, I don't think it should it should be easy, Đức Anh, because you are outstanding students. You deserve something very difficult. Just to satisfy your capacity and your efforts of studying, right? I'm not sure. Probably it could be multiple choice questions and then written some problem solving questions as well. I think you are catching up quite well up to now, right? We have Trà My, Đức Anh, right? Trang. Then and Diệu Hằng, right? You can all solve the question. So I think I have to think really hard and design a test that can really test your capacity. You know, life is not easy. We have to accept that. The more challenging the life is, the more grown up you are, right? Okay. If you, during the revision, if you have any question, please ask. And I prefer you asking me face-to-face online, because sometimes it's after the class it's difficult to discuss by messages, because sometimes I don't understand your question, you don't understand my explanation. So it's always best if we can talk, we can discuss it. No sad face. Happy face. Yeah, I know study online is a trouble too, but you are FTU students. You can do it. You can survive in every difficult situation, and especially you are students of high quality class. It's very difficult to be a high quality staff student itself. All right. The thing here is you have to be, don't be confused when it comes to strategy. As if we combine different strategies, then sometimes you'll be confused. But it's very easy, I think, because we only cover up to now the 2 contracts, and including swapped for today, then it would be 3 contracts only, right? Then I think it's easy for you, no worry. And when it comes to option, it mixed it up, the strategies will be a little bit confusing. But I believe that you will be fine. No worry. I think your response up to now is quite good. So I'm very positive about our class. The style, my style of designing question in the test, I have to be clear in trying to explain that the way that I design the test, I would design the test based on different levels of understanding of studying. If you study, you will pass. Right? So the very basic level of passing is very basic. The condition is that you have to study, then you pass. Okay. If you study a little bit harder, you upgrade yourself in a better level. So from D to C. Okay. If you study harder, then you have B. You will be able to score B. And if you study very, very hard, you'll be able to score A. Okay, so there will be different types of questions in order to identify students of different levels. So no worry, I think you'll be able to do fine, to score well. There is no challenging question that will be too difficult for you to solve. Everything will be around what we have studied. Okay. Okay, let's get continued with chapter 7, which is about swaps. Actually, underlying swap contracts, we may have different kinds of contracts designed with the different underlying assets. But here in this course, we only explain the swap contract in a very simple form, just to introduce to you how swap mechanism is carried out in reality. The more complicated products or swap contracts would not be included in this module. So we just learn basic things. Okay. The nature of swap lies in the way that swap is defined as the agreement between 2 parties, and the 2 parties getting involved in exchanging cash flows based on the specific contract, and the underlying asset could be the interest rate, or it could be the foreign exchange currency. So basically, Based on the underlying asset, there would be expected cash flows exchanged by the two parties at the specific future period of time. And we have to follow the certain rules set in the contract. So swap can be considered as the contract signing before two parties. Therefore, it is the binding obligation between two parties. Right? There is no opt-out option like option contract. Once we sign the contract, we sign the agreement, we are obliged to carry out the or our rights and conditions regarding the contract. An example of a very simple contract regarding the interest rate swap is called a plain vanilla. Okay, and this interest rate swap represent an agreement between Microsoft and Intel. Okay, Microsoft and Intel. So the agreement is to receive, for Microsoft to receive a 6-month LIBOR, right, and pay a fixed rate of 5% per annum. So LIBOR is the London Interbank Offering Rate, is supposed to be a floating rate. And in exchange for receiving the LIBOR, then Microsoft would have to pay an interest fixed rate of 5% per annum every 6 months for the next 3 years on what is called a notional principal of $100 million. Notional principal means that we based on the notional principal, the notional amount underlying the contract to work out to calculate the cash flow exchanged by two parties. Okay, probably there would not be an exchange, a real exchange of $100 million in the end, but it may vary from contract to contract and may vary from products to products. But let's see how this contract is carried out. Now we would illustrate the cash flow exchange between the two parties, between Microsoft and Intel. And we assume that we do not consider it on the day count convention. So basically, we based on the period signed in the contract, like 6 months within 3 years to calculate the cash flow. The possible outcomes for the cash flow to exchange between Microsoft and another party, let's say Intel, to be involved in the same contract would be like this. So on the 5th of March 2014, right, then the LIBOR rate in the market was 4.20%. Right? 4.20. LIBOR is the floating rate, so it means that it would fluctuate, it would change accordingly with the market. Right? Fixed rate is the fixed rate, so 5% as fixed rate per annum to exchange for 6-month LIBOR. Right? So in the market at that time, 4.2 is the LIBOR rate. And as you can see, the information that we have 6-month LIBOR to exchange for the fixed rate of 5%. And this is to exchange every 6 months. So we have to divide it into, because this rate is quoted per annum, right? So basically we would have to divide the period of time, and the notional principal is 100 million, and 6-month cash flow would be like what? Is this the amount of money that we have? $2.10 million. Is this the cash flow that we are receiving based on the notional value of $100 million? Yeah. And for the fixed cash flow, it would be 2.5. Minus means that this is the outflow because we are paying out 2.5 million in order to exchange for LIBOR, 6-month LIBOR. So we receive 2.1 million and pay 2.5. So the net cash flow is negative 0.4. Move on with the next period of time. On the 5th of September, then the LIBOR, 6-month LIBOR now changed into 4.8%. And therefore, the cash flow that Microsoft is receiving is 2.4 in order to exchange 2.5 as the fixed rate, fixed cash flow. So we got the net cash flow of negative 0.1. In the 5th of March, 6 months later, the LIBOR now in the market is 5.2. And then Microsoft is receiving the cash flow of 2.65 in exchange for the cash flow of 2.5. And in this period of time, then we have made a positive cash flow, right? Because LIBOR rate is more than the fixed rate, and etc. We would adjust the cash flow exchanged by the two parties in according to the period of time listed in the contract. So basically, we pay out, we receive in, we work out the net cash flow, and this is the possible outcome for the cash flow exchange through swap, interest rate swap between Microsoft and other party. So basically, when corporations, right, when businesses enter a swap contract, and for example, the underlying asset is the interest rate, the purpose of entering the swap contract is to convert a liability from a fixed rate to a floating rate, or converting the liability that the firm has to pay floating rate into the fixed rate. And this is dependent on the belief of the anticipation or the forecast of a business with the market to see, you know, which one is more favorable in certain period of time. Okay. And for the swap in Vietnam, we also have swap contract, and normally the businesses that usually big businesses will enter the swap contract with the banks, or the banks between banks will also have swap contract. Besides converting a liability from fixed to floating or floating to fixed, then we also have the purpose of using interest rate swap is to convert an investment from fixed rate to floating rate, and vice versa, from floating rate to fixed rate. So sometimes the businesses or the investors in the market that have the investment receiving fixed rate, they want to switch it with another party into receiving floating rate. Then they can enter the interest rate swap, or vice versa. They can end up, you know, with receiving fixed rate instead of floating rate as previously. They can also enter the swap contract to do that. Okay, if you look at the graph over here, this graph represents the transformation of a liability between two parties, Intel and Microsoft. So how do we understand this? The arrow over here, right? The original arrow over here represent that these two parties are having a liability to pay out. So as you can see, the arrow is pointing out, which means the liability is incurred to Microsoft, as well as another liability with the fixed rate of 5.2% is incurred to Intel, right? Now, Intel and Microsoft get together and signed a contract, a swap contract to exchange the rate so that previously Microsoft has the liability to pay the floating rate, which is LIBOR plus 0.1%, right? And Intel originally has the liability to pay 5.2% fixed rate outside to another partner. Now they cooperate, enter the swap contract, and they would transfer the liability from floating rate to fixed rate and fixed rate to floating rate. Now tell me, what's the result? Microsoft will end up with what rate and Intel will end up with what rate? So Microsoft will end up with what rate and Intel will end up with what rate? The exchange is like this, right? This is the swap contract. Looking at the arrows, you can work out what is going on. So for Microsoft, right? For Microsoft, what do we have over here? Microsoft will pay LIBOR plus 0.1, right? So payout. This is the direction of the arrow. Then Microsoft pays Intel 5%. So minus 5%, right? And Microsoft receive from Intel in exchange for 5% LIBOR. So what is left over for Microsoft? What is left over for Microsoft? So LIBOR, cross out. What's left over is? Guys?
Minus 5.1%.
Okay, minus 5.1%. Minus here means this is a liability, right? So Microsoft ends up by entering swap contract with Intel and swap the interest rate with Intel. So originally it has to pay LIBOR plus 0.1%. Now it ends up with 5.1% as the fixed rate. And Intel, right? Can you hear me? I receive a signal that I have a bad quality network.
We can still hear you.
All right. So Intel has to pay 5.2%, right? And receive from Microsoft 5%, right? And has to pay for Microsoft LIBOR. So basically, Intel will end up with what? Intel will end up with what?
With LIBOR plus 0.2%.
With LIBOR plus 0.2%. Is that correct? Yeah, so as you can see, so Intel originally, it has the liability that requires the corporation to pay 5.2%. Now, by entering the swap with Microsoft, it ends up with paying the floating rate, LIBOR plus 0.2. Right? So this represents a swap in which two parties get directly into the contract together. But in reality, these two parties may not sign the contract directly together. They may have the help of what is called financial institution. The financial institution will act as the middleman to connect between Microsoft and Intel, right? Because this is a bigger market, and probably Microsoft cannot fit in with the demand or the supply of the Intel. So through financial institution, they will help connecting the right need between two parties and would be able to assist the swap transaction. So with the help of financial institution, as you can see, since it acts as the middleman, it will require some commission, right, in order to facilitate the transactions between corporation. And if we take a look at this, then how much is the commission and how much would Microsoft and Intel end up paying? Can you calculate, please? Okay, try to work out the deal between the two. Finish. All the trading analyst, trader entering the market, and it takes a lifetime to work out the final rate. Are you falling asleep, or I'm having a problem connecting to all of you?
We have comment.
Comment. Oh, speak it out. I have to escape in order to read the comments. Just speak it out, please.
So can I?
Yes, please.
Okay. So for the financial intermediary, so they receive, as I calculate, 0.03 commission. 0.03% commission. And the MS is minus 5.115%.
Minus, you mean 5.115. Okay.
Percent. And Intel is minus LIBOR in the bracket.
Okay, LIBOR. So we just open the bracket.
Yeah, LIBOR plus 0.215%.
215%.
Yeah.
You all agree with the bank, or you share the different result? So, you know, when we try to input it like that, just to represent, you know, the cash inflow, cash outflow, the rate inflow, the rate outflow, when you end up, you should have, you should not put the minus in front. Okay, this is for us to just calculate. We have to work out the final result, for example, like this, rather than minus or plus or something, because basically this is what we have to pay, and we have to express it in words rather than in signs. Do you share the same result with Đức Anh?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, all right. So this is not difficult, right? This is an easy chapter. So you'll be managing it very well. Okay. Now that is the example of what does it mean by transforming a liability from a fixed rate to floating rate and floating rate to fixed rate. Now, let's take a look at the way that the two parties can transform an asset that generate the fixed rate income into the floating rate and vice versa. So the difference between this example and that example lies in the way that the arrow, if you take a look at this, is going inside, right? It means that this is not the liability, but it rather represents the asset. So the flow into Microsoft is fixed interest rate, and the flow into Intel is the floating rate. Okay, now tell me, how do these two parties end up? How will these two parties end up?
Can I try? Yes, please. Then for MS, then it will receive LIBOR minus 0.3%.
LIBOR
Minus
minus
0.3%.
And for Intel?
For Intel, it will receive 4.8%.
4.8%. Do you agree with her, guys?
Yes.
Yeah, this is simple calculation, right? So MS Microsoft receive LIBOR in receive 4.7% in and pay 5%. So basically, Microsoft would end up with LIBOR minus 0.3%, receiving LIBOR minus 0.3%. Intel receive LIBOR minus 0.2% and pay LIBOR. So LIBOR, we cross it out, right? Then what is left over is minus 0.2 and receive 5%. So basically we take the difference 5 minus 0.2, which is 4.8%. So this example represents the direct swap transaction between the two parties, but probably there would be the involvement of the financial institution, right? It serves as the middleman to connect between two parties. Now, with the involvement of financial institution, now Intel and Microsoft will end up with slightly different results. Now, tell me, how would they end up with? What rate would they end up with? And how much the financial institution will receive as a commission?
As I calculate, so the financial intermediaries will receive the same commission with this 0.03 as I calculated before, and the Microsoft will receive LIBOR minus 0.315%, and Intel receive 4.785.
4.785.
Yes, 4.785. So the MS is LIBOR minus 0.315.
0.315.
Yeah.
Okay. So basically, the two parties will have to, give some parts of their interest rate to the financial intermediary, right? Financial institution in between as a commission. So the rate they would receive would be a little bit lower than the previous case, as we can see. So this can be the quote by the swap maker, market maker. So the market maker helps to connect between the seller and the buyer, and basically they would have to quote the price according to the demand and supply of the traders in the market. So this could be the quotes by the swap market maker for different maturities. We would have different bid and offer and swap rate according to the swap contracts. We also have what is called the day count convention. Okay, the day count convention is supposed to be the convention that is specified for fixed or floating payment. So, for example, if a LIBOR is likely to be counted as the actual number of days written in the contract divided by 360 days if we assume that 1 year would contain 360 days, then the day count convention would be able to be used to work out the rate, the actual cash flow to exchange between two parties. So this is what is just the convention. It is just the way that the regulation set by the swap market in order for the player to calculate the cash flows. Confirmations are also understood as the kind of how to say, it's like a text, like a contract, like a regulation, like the terms and conditions written in each embedded in each transaction. So basically, we would expect the terms and conditions of the contract between the two parties written in the confirmation, and we can understand it like the agreement between the two parties. So they sign the contract, the swap contract, and confirmations would help them to specify all the terms regarding a specific transaction between the two parties. And the International Swap and Derivatives has developed what is called the master agreements. Right? The master agreements can be used to cover all the agreements between the two parties involved in the swap transaction. And a lot of interest rate swaps are now cleared through the central counterparty, as we have already discussed about this, the CCP. And the CCP in swap market would include, for example, the LCH ClearNet, or in the US, it is the same as the CME Group. They will help as the exchange in order to clear all the contracts between the two parties. And in this case, we are mentioning about the interest rate swap. I think we have the last part, which is about the comparative advantage agreement. But I think we would take a short break and then we will continue. So we take about 10 to 15 minutes break, and I'll see you again after that. And if you are tired, if you are not very conscious, please go and refresh yourself, drink some water, get some drink, then we can come back together, staying very alert, because for this, it would be a little bit difficult to understand. So it requires your full concentration, okay? Then it will be easy. Any questions before we take a break? No questions? Okay, I'll see you in 10 to 15 minutes. Are you ready to come back?
Yes.
Okay. Is it because of the internet connection that I have asked the question for quite a while, and then long time after that I heard a yes? Due to the lag. Okay. Now we will continue with a very, how do I say, a very famous argument in swap, in which in swap contract or swap designing, in which we call it a comparative advantage argument. So this argument is basically is basically about the way that for example, the financial institution who works as the middleman to connect between two parties, they would work out the best deal in order to make sure that each corporation or each partner getting involved in the swap contract could be able to earn the best out of the deal based on their comparative advantage. Because basically different corporations would want different things, right? Due to their own forecast, they would want to end up with the opposite interest rate, or the way, for example, if they are borrowing floating rate, they want to end up with a fixed rate, or if they borrow at the fixed rate, they want to end up with the floating rate. So depending on the demand of each corporation, the deal between them would be should be designed in the way that they would have to make use of their comparative advantage over the certain interest rate. So how does this work? According to the argument related to the comparative advantage, if we consider this case, we can see that AAA corporation, right, wants to borrow floating rate. So this is the demand. This is what the AAA corporation wants. BBB corporation wants to borrow at fixed rate. Okay. When the corporations are named AAA, BBB, you might understand that these AAA or BBB reflect the current credit rating of these corporations. So according to the Standard & Poor, this is according to the latest rating used by Standard & Poor credit rating. AAA is the top corporation. Okay, in order to satisfy the condition, in order to be rated as AAA or BBB, you can look for further information from the website, from the internet, in order to see how Standard & Poor rate this corporation according to what standards, what what conditions. So basically, AAA is the best company, is the top rating company. BBB comes to the second rating in the level of rating. So we have AAA, we have AA, we have A, and then come after that we have second level, which is BBB, BB, B, and then we have CCC, CC, and the last rating is D. D means default, right? Which is the corporation that has gone bankrupt. So in comparison between AAA corporation and BBB, as you can see, AAA company is rated on the top, while BBB company corporation is rated at the second level. The second, although it is not too bad like triple C or C corporation, but it is rated lower than triple A corporation. Accordingly, as you can see, the interest rate offered by these two corporations also vary. As you can see, AAA corporation, the fixed rate is 4%, the floating rate is 6-month LIBOR minus 0.1%, 1 percentage point. Triple B is offered 5.2% in fixed and 6-month LIBOR plus 0.6% in floating rate. Obviously, since AAA corporation is the top rating corporation, therefore they are offered better rate in comparison with triple B in both fixed and floating rate, right? In both fixed and floating rate. But when it comes to what is called comparative advantage, okay, then we would try to see the comparative, or try to identify the comparative advantage between fixed and floating rate with each corporation. Okay, so tell me, how do you find the comparative advantage of AAA corporation and triple B corporation over the fixed and floating rates? How do you define, or how do you identify the comparative advantage of AAA corporation and triple B corporation over fixed and floating rate?
Did we use the opportunity cost?
Like, what do you mean?
Like if you choose a fixed rate, so how much the floating rate you will sacrifice, and you will base on which one is sacrificed lower, so you will choose the rate.
Like if we choose this, we have to forego another one. Is that what
Yes.
you mean?
Yes.
Whatever you use, then tell me which corporation has comparative advantage at which rate.
I will base on the difference in the fixed rate of the two corporations and the difference in the floating rate. And specific, the triple B corp has to pay 1.2% more than the triple A corp in terms of the fixed rate, and 0.7% more than triple A corp in terms of floating rate. So the triple B has comparative advantage in the floating rate, and the triple A has comparative advantage in the fixed rate.
All right, is that Hằng?
Yes.
All right, okay, very good. Basically, in order to identify the comparative advantage, basically we compare between the rates, right? Between the rates, for example, we all agree that AAA corporation is the highest ranking rate, is the higher let's say the best rating corporation. Therefore, in both fixed or floating, they are offered the better rates, right? But in order to identify the comparative advantage, basically we compare between fixed and floating rate in order to see the difference between these two rates. And with fixed rate, as you can see, the difference between the rate offered to triple B and triple A would be 1.2%, right? And the floating rate would be how much? Will be how much?
0.7%.
LIBOR.
0.7%.
LIBOR, we cross it out, right? So we have how much? 0.7?
Yes.
0.7%. Okay. So if we compare the differences between these two differences in rates, then we can see 1.2 is higher than 0.7, right? And therefore we can say triple B will have the comparative advantage over the floating rate, while triple A will have the comparative advantage over the fixed rate. Yes, because basically the difference between the fixed rate is more than the difference in floating rate, then we can conclude that AAA will have comparative advantage over the fixed rate if they borrow at fixed rate, and BBB will have the comparative advantage over the floating rate since the difference between the floating rate is lower than the fixed rate. Yes? Okay, that is the argument related to the fixed and floating rate. Now I just wrap it up over here. Oops. So 1.2 and 0.7. Okay. So now, the thing here is, in order to make use of the comparative advantage over the fixed rate and the floating rate, as you can see, although AAA Corporation has the comparative advantage over the fixed rate, but it wants to end up borrowing at the floating rate, right? And BBB, although it has the comparative advantage over the floating rate, but it wants to end up borrowing at fixed rate. Okay? Now our duty is to design a swap contract so that AAA and BBB can enter the swap of the interest rate together and still be able to end up with what they want, and at the same time they would have to be able to make use of their comparative advantage. Can we do that? Can we design a swap so that the two parties can end up with what they want and still can make use of the comparative advantage? Okay, how do we do that?
So for the AAA, so first they will pay 4% to the outside lenders, and it will receive a payment, an interest payment from BBC, and it pays LIBOR to BBC.
And
for the BBC, so it pays LIBOR plus 0.6% to the outside lenders, and it receives LIBOR from AAA, and it will pay the interest for AAA, the fixed interest for AAA.
so how do you work out the final rate that they will end up with?
I think by calculating, just like the before, just like the normal swap as before.
Well, actually, we have to work out how much they can make use of the comparative advantage before we designing the swap contract, and to work out what they end up with. Well, in order to make use of the comparative advantage of both corporations and design the swap contract so that both parties can benefit from their comparative advantage, then basically we would have to allocate the comparative advantage equally between the two parties and try to design a swap contract so that they can end up with the results, the best result that they will be able to be beneficiary of because of the comparative advantage. And the way that we can deploy the comparative argument would be we would take the difference between fixed and floating rate. Okay, so basically 1.2 minus 0.7, right? And it would be equal to how much? 0.5, right? This 0.5 as the difference between fixed and floating rates should be allocated equally to both parties to reflect the comparative advantage. So here we would divide it into two. Okay. So each of them would be able to to benefit 0.025%, right? Oh, sorry, 0.25%. Okay, so how do we allocate this into the final results to reflect the comparative advantage? So in order for each to be benefit from the comparative advantage, and we understand that AAA wants to borrow at floating, while BBB wants to borrow at fixed. And if they can benefit from the comparative advantage, which means they would end up with the result that they want, and they would benefit the comparative advantage by lowering the rate at which they would achieve at the end as the result of the swap contract. So if BBB wants to end up by borrowing at fixed, instead of borrowing at 5.2%, right, then we would deduct 0.25 out of 5.2%. And AAA wants to end up with the floating rate, right? And the floating rate that it would end up is 6-month LIBOR minus 0.1%. Now, to be benefit from the comparative advantage, then the floating rate will be reduced by 0.25%, which means that the AAA will end up borrowing at the LIBOR minus 0.35%. Okay. So the results that we have over here, right? For, let's say for AAA, it is LIBOR minus 0.35%. And for I'll just write it over here. Okay. And BBB will end up with 5.2 minus 0.25. So it will end up borrowing at the fixed rate of 4.95%. Now, can you design a swap contract so that AAA and BBB will end up with these results? can you design a swap contract that so that AAA and BBB will end up with these results? You know, as what we have drawn before, with the arrow going in, going out, showing the cash flow, the rates going in, going out. So
I think for AAA Corp, so first it will receive 4%.
Please show us the graph that you have.
Oh, I do not have anything to draw here.
Yeah, because it's very difficult to follow the word explanation. Now, show us the drawing.
Can I use the previous graph of you? The one which pay out to the lender?
Can you share screen?
Okay, sure.
Yeah, I'll stop sharing screen so that she can do it.
So can you see now? Can you able to see it clearly now?
Yes, yes.
So for the first client, so I would pay 4.5% to the lender. So up here,
you can enlarge the screen a little bit.
Yeah. So first of all, it would pay 4% to the outside lender. Here it would be 4.5 at 4%. Be like this. So for the second one, it would.
It's just you can write 4% only because the arrow is that you know AAA would pay up.
Pay 4% to the lender, and it will pay. It will receive 4.35 from BBB.
Is it possible to show the you know, to write something similar to what we have done in the previous example?
So can I use your previous graph? When you mean so that I would write something on the previous graph, so it would be easier.
Or you can share your screen and write it normally as the handwriting with the pointing arrow out and in. Because with the previous graph, it would have the numbers. It would be confusing for all of us.
Can I?
Yes, so I will use this example instead. So it would be more like this. So I would assume that this AA and this would be BBB. So for the first case of AA, that it would be paying 4% to the outside lender. At the same time, it will pay LIBOR for the BBB, and receive 4.35% from BBB. So it will be minus 4% plus 4.35% minus LIBOR, and it would be LIBOR minus 4.35%. For the BBB, it would be that it will pay LIBOR 0 plus 0.6% to the outside lender, minus 4.35 to AAA, and it will receive LIBOR from AAA. So in this case, it will get a total of minus 4.95% as the demand of the two companies in this case.
Yes,
Here, this is the graph of it.
okay.
It would be like this.
Yeah, when you explain the swap contract, you need to, it's better or always better to use the arrows, right? And the result will be shown very clearly in the way that the cash flow, the interest rate is in or out each corporation. Yeah, obviously, if you don't have the graph over here like this, can you still draw something similarly?
I have a picture of the graph, but can I show it for each other?
Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay, Tu Hằng, you can. I cannot hear you. Actually, you are muted.
I'm sorry. So there's a picture that if the AAA want to pay the interest about like LIBOR minus 1.35%, so I calculate the BBB curve have to give about 4.35%. So that is the flow of the interest rate. So like thus I calculate minus, plus and minus, so it will have this result. And about the B, it will have it receives the floating fixed about LIBOR and it receives the have to pay the LIBOR plus 6%. So you have to receive the LIBOR here, receive LIBOR, and after that you have to pay the fixed rate about 4.35%. So the answer would be B has to pay 4.35%. So this is the whole process.
Okay. You understand what Hằng is trying to present? The graph is being shown very clearly how AAA and BBB would end up, right? As the result of the comparative advantage if we design a swap showing that both parties can benefit from the comparative advantage and at the same time want to end up with what the interest rate that they want. So here, as you can see, the way that Hằng is presenting is correct, right? we can see as the result of this swap agreement, then AAA can end up with what they want. They would end up with borrowing at the LIBOR minus 0.35%, and BBB will end up with borrowing at the fixed rate of 4.95%. Yes. The only thing is, Hằng, you are just like Đức Anh the other day, that you are using the dot and comma in the incorrect way. So be careful with that. Okay, so you are all clear about the comparative advantage. If we have the involvement of financial institution, then obviously financial institutions would be would receive some commission, and therefore we would have to minus the commission between we divide the rate, the difference in the rate into two. Right? That is the step that that we would have to do before we allocate the final results into designing the swap agreement between the two parties. Okay. I think we'll stop here for today, and we'll continue next week, Wednesday. Do you have any question related to the comparative advantage argument? Is it clear to you, or do you have any difficulty in understanding? You know, you have to raise your voice. Otherwise, I will assume that the students are clear. Everything is clear to all of you, because basically based on a few of you who contributes during the session, and I assume that you would understand all. If you don't have questions, then okay. I just sent you a link containing all the electronic library books. So if you have time, you can download the books and read during the lockdown and extend some knowledge. Right, so I think someone texted me. Right? Cannot see their text yet. Okay. If you don't have any questions, then we'll stop here for today.
Thank you, teacher.
Okay. Have a nice weekend. See you next week.
Goodbye, teacher. Thank you.
Goodbye.
Bye, teacher.
Bye.